Welcome to a new episode of the Genius Program. Once upon a time, in a quiet corner of Poland in 2019, a group of Catholic priests gathered around a fire. Their faces were stern, their expressions filled with determination. They weren't just burning any random objects, they were burning symbols of what they believed to be corruption and evil. Among the artifacts being reduced to ashes were African masks, Buddhist statues, and magical charms. But then, hidden within the pile of condemned items, was something unexpected: copies of Harry Potter. Why would religious figures burn a children's book? Wasn't Harry Potter just a fantasy novel, a tale of friendship, adventure, and magic? To them, it was far more dangerous than it seemed. They believed that the spells in the book were real, that it encouraged children to embrace witchcraft, and that it was corrupting young minds. What those priests didn't realize was that Harry Potter was not just a book. It was a global phenomenon that had changed literature, cinema, and even people's lives. The story begins with a woman named Joanne Rowling, or as the world would later know her, J.K. Rowling. She wasn't always the legendary author we think of today. She was an ordinary girl with a vivid imagination, growing up in a world that felt too small for her dreams. From an early age, she was obsessed with storytelling. While other children were learning simple phrases like, A is for apple, Joanne was already reading complex fantasy novels about talking animals and magical lands. By the time she was 6, she had written her first story, a tale about a little girl who falls into a rabbit hole full of talking rabbits. But life wasn't a fairy tale. She grew up in a normal household, the daughter of an aircraft engineer and a laboratory technician. However, the real tragedy of her life began when her mother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a disease that slowly robbed her of her ability to move. Joanne, still a teenager, had to watch helplessly as her mother grew weaker every day. As she got older, she faced rejection after rejection in her career. She moved to Portugal to teach English, hoping for a fresh start. There, she met a man, fell in love, and got married. But the marriage turned into a nightmare. Her husband was abusive, controlling, and violent. He monitored her every move, checked her bag when she left the house, and physically assaulted her. It got so bad that she had to flee with her infant daughter, Jessica, running away to the UK with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She was broke, struggling, and living on government aid. But during this period of darkness, she found an escape: writing. The idea for Harry Potter came to her in 1990 while sitting on a train. A young boy, thin and messy-haired, wearing glasses and a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead, appeared in her imagination. A boy who was special but didn't know it yet. A boy who would change the world. She spent years developing the story. But when she finally completed the first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, she faced yet another series of crushing rejections. 12 different publishers turned her down, claiming that her story was too long, too complicated, or not interesting enough for children. But fate had other plans. One day, a little girl changed everything. The daughter of an editor at Bloomsbury Publishing picked up the first chapter of the manuscript and read it. She turned to her father and asked a simple question: what happens next? That question was all it took. Bloomsbury decided to take a gamble on the book. But even then, they were hesitant. They told Rowling she needed to change her name because boys wouldn't want to read a book written by a woman. So she became J.K. Rowling, using the initials to disguise her gender. Finally, in 1997, the book was published. At first, only 500 copies were printed. No big marketing campaigns, no grand announcements. It was just another book on the shelves. But something magical happened. Kids loved it. They started recommending it to their friends, their classmates, their families. And suddenly, Harry Potter wasn't just a book. It was a movement. Children who had never liked reading before were now obsessed with the series. They memorized spells, imagined themselves at Hogwarts, and debated which house they belonged to: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. As the series continued, the stories evolved. They weren't just about a young wizard learning magic. They were about growing up, facing darkness, and discovering who you truly are. And then, the fourth book changed everything. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire was released in 2000 and became an instant sensation. 3 million copies were sold in just 2 days. But something else made this book different: it introduced death. Until then, Harry Potter had been filled with adventure and excitement. But when Cedric Diggory was murdered, the series took a darker turn. Suddenly, this wasn't just a children's book anymore. It was a story about the cost of war, the pain of loss, and the power of sacrifice. From that point on, no one was safe. Characters we loved started dying one by one. Sirius Black, Albus Dumbledore, Dobby, Fred Weasley, Lupin, Tonks. And in one of the most heartbreaking moments in literature, Severus Snape, the character we had misunderstood for years, revealed his true love for Harry's mother before dying in one of the most emotional scenes ever written. Even Harry himself died for a moment, sacrificing himself to defeat Voldemort. By the time the series ended in 2007, it had sold over 600 million copies, been translated into 85 languages, and spawned a billion-dollar movie franchise. But it wasn't just a story anymore. Harry Potter had changed the world. It revived the book industry, proving that children's literature could be both profitable and meaningful. It inspired millions of kids to start reading. It created a global fandom, where people still debate theories, reread the books, and visit real-life Hogwarts attractions. It also sparked controversy. Some people saw it as a symbol of rebellion. Religious groups criticized it, saying it promoted witchcraft. Political groups debated its themes of racism, classism, and power. And yet, at its core, Harry Potter is a story about hope. It's about believing in yourself even when the world tells you you're nothing. It's about choosing kindness over cruelty, friendship over fear, and bravery over silence. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real magic of Harry Potter.